Hi there, I'm Todd Miller, 7-8 culinary arts teacher with Lakehead Public Schools. I've got another recipe for you to try today, but before we start, a few reminders. First off, if you're unsure about any of the equipment that you're going to be using, make sure you ask someone that has some more kitchen experience, especially when you're working around the stove, oven, and even the microwave. Make sure you understand how they work, and always have a pair of oven mitts handy, even for the microwave. Some of the equipment gets hot in there. If the recipe calls for the use of a knife, make sure that you're really comfortable using a sharp knife like this. Again, ask somebody that has some experience and practice first before using it for your recipe. Always hold the knife with a lot of conviction in one hand, and with your other hand, you want to make sure that you keep your hand in that claw position, kind of like you're holding a tennis ball. Always keep your hand curled back so that the knife doesn't come in contact with your fingertips. Before you start the recipe, make sure you watch the entire video, read the recipe entirely through, make sure you understand everything, and of course, get all of your equipment and your ingredients out first. It makes the recipe go a lot more smoothly. And finally, don't forget, you made the mess, you're in charge of cleaning up. Don't leave a dirty kitchen for someone else. So have a great time cooking. Well, today we're going to take a look at salad. Now, before you close this video and go back to a cookie recipe, hear me out. Salad is a lot of fun. And of the hundreds of kids that have come into the cooking program at Kingsway Park Public School, so many of them are surprised at how much they enjoy the salad activity. We're going to do three things with salad today. We're going to take a look at some homemade dressings and vinaigrettes. We're going to take a look at homemade croutons, and we're going to take a look at our vegetables that we're going to put in our salad as well. So let's start off with the croutons. Now, there's nothing wrong with croutons that you buy at the store. But it is a bread product. Bread should only last about a week or so, and this is a product that will last for years and years in a package, which means there must be a lot of preservatives and other things to keep it from going bad. I prefer mine a little fresher, and it's so easy to make your own croutons at home. All you need is some bread, a little bit of oil, some salt, and seasonings if you want. That's it. The best thing too is that you're using bread that you don't want to eat anymore anyways. It could be bread that's just starting to go a little bit stale. You don't want to make it into a sandwich, use it for toast. Or in my case, it could be bread that you made that didn't turn out. This is a loaf of sourdough that did not go the way I want it to, so instead I'm turning it into croutons. So I just used a serrated bread knife here, and I chopped up those pieces of bread into little cubes like this, and you can put whatever size you want. And then, so easy, I'm just going to take those cubes, put them into a bowl, and we're going to add a little bit of oil. I suggest olive oil. It's got some more flavor to it, so you want to use some olive oil. And the nice thing is, don't really have to measure. Just pour a little bit on top, just like that. Maybe a couple of tablespoons. A little bit of salt as well too, a good pinch of salt on there. There's already some salt in the bread. We want a little bit extra. And then you mix it up. That's it. If you like things like Italian seasoning, you can put some Italian seasoning on. If you really like some Parmesan-y type croutons, you can sprinkle some Parmesan cheese on here as well before you bake them. And then we're going to be baking them. We're really just drying them out in the oven. It's kind of like we're making little tiny cubes of toast. So we take a baking pan like this. Parchment paper is fantastic because it makes it easy to clean up. The croutons don't stick to it. And we just pour the croutons out into the pan. And this is a really important thing, is we have to make sure that you spread the croutons out with your fingers so that you just have one layer. There's no croutons lying on top of other croutons. If that happened, they would turn soggy. They wouldn't dry out properly. We want them to dry out and get nice and crisp. A 350-degree oven, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15, depending on your oven and also depending on how crispy you want. They just go in like that. You might give them a stir or a turn halfway through. And then here's some I made before. I made these ones a little bit smaller. They're nice and crunchy now. They taste delicious. They'll last for a few days in a plastic bag, and they're so much better on salad. Everybody loves these homemade croutons. So that's the first thing that you can make. The second thing is our salad dressings or our vinaigrettes. Nothing wrong with the stuff you buy at the store, but again, lots of different ingredients in there that I've never heard of and I cannot pronounce. And most people have a lot of the ingredients to make different types of salad dressings. In the recipe that is on our board's website, there's 4 different ones I suggest, but there's so many different ones out there in cookbooks and on websites, so you make the way you want. I'll give you 2 quick examples today using different ingredients. So the first one we're going to make is a very basic one. This is a basic French vinaigrette, and we're actually going to make it in an old jam jar. This is the easiest way to make dressings because we want to mix our ingredients together after Basically what we need is we need some fats and oils, and we need some acids, in this case like vinegars or lemon juice, things like that. And we want those to mix together, and that's called emulsification. And either shaking it up really well or stirring it a lot with a whisk is going to get us what we want. So I'll start off with our basic one. So we're going to start off with our acids first. We're going to start off with a little vinegar, a little white wine vinegar. There's 2 tablespoons. And a little lemon juice as well. There's 1 tablespoon. So those are our acids. Now we're going to add our fats, our oils. Now if I add just olive oil, it's going to be a little too olive oily, a little too strong. So I'm going to add a 1/4 cup or 4 tablespoons of olive oil. And I'm going to add the same amount of just a regular vegetable oil or canola oil or grapeseed oil. There are so many names out there for these different oils, but some kind of more what we call neutral tasting flavor. So I put that in as well. So there's my 2 basic things. Now we want to add some flavorings to it. I'm going to start off with a half a teaspoon or half a tablespoon, excuse me, of DIJON. So that's a teaspoon with a little bit extra on it. And I'm going to use half a shallot. Now, a shallot's a type of an onion. It's a lot milder than the regular white onions that we use. You can buy them at the store. I didn't have any, so I just used the white ends of a green onion, this part down here, which is quite mild as well too. So I just chopped that up really fine. I'm going to put that in there as well too. And then I'm going to add just a little pinch of salt and a little tiny pinch of pepper. That's it. That's a very basic dressing. You just put the lid on now, nice and tight, and you start to shake. And if you shake for about 30 seconds to a minute, those oils and those fats, and the acids are going to mix all together, and you're going to have a beautiful salad dressing. And then of course, the reason I'm making it now is it's best if you put it in the fridge, let it sit for a while, half an hour, even overnight. And this will keep for a couple of days too, so you can use it again and again. So that's one kind. The other kind, we'll use a bowl for it, and we'll use a whisk instead. Now this one's more of a thicker dressing, and this one's really popular with students because a lot of people like the ranch flavors. Some people don't like it at first when they see what goes into it because they might not like things like mayonnaise or plain yogurt, but when we put it all together, it tastes delicious. I'm going to start off with just some plain yogurt, and I'm going to use half of a cup. I got a 1/4 cup here, so of course I have to do that twice because a 1/4 and a 1/4 makes a half. And then we're going to use a 1/4 cup, oops, I can't get that out there, of some mayonnaise as well. So these are our fats. Now this one is a very much more rich dressing. There isn't much in the way of acid in this, just a little bit of vinegar, 1 teaspoon of vinegar in that. There we go. And this is lots of dressing here, so just under a half teaspoon of salt, a little bit less. You can put in a bit more if you want, and a little tiny pinch of pepper. And then the flavors from ranch dressing comes from things like garlic and onion and dill. So I'm just using some powdered format. So here's a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, the same of onion powder, and then another 1/4 teaspoon of dried dill. There we go. And then we just take a whisk, and again, we're just trying to whisk that all together. We got a little bit of oil in there, quite a bit of oil, excuse me, a little bit of acid in there with our dressing, and we end up with a beautiful dressing like that. It's got some nice green flecks in there, lots of great flavor from the onion powder, the garlic powder, and the dill powder. And that's it. That just took a couple of seconds. You've got fresh dressing then, and you can make it, if you like yours a little bit more garlicky, add a little bit more of that. If you don't like the type of oil that you're using, you use a little bit less, or a little bit less of the mayonnaise or the yogurt, whatever works for you. So now we've got some dressings. We've got our croutons all set, so we'll talk about the salad themselves. Lots of different lettuces out there. Usually, honestly, I buy whatever's on sale, and last week it was romaine lettuce, so just breaking this into bite-sized chunks is the best way to go. There's iceberg lettuce, leaf lettuce, there's kale, there's spinach, there's all sorts of greens that you can use for your salad. A lot of people like to put protein in their salad as well. Some people like to cut up hard-boiled eggs and put them in their salad. Other people like different seafood products like flake-like tuna. Regular chicken, leftover chicken from the night before, or canned chicken is great. Other people that preferred a more vegetarian option might use things like chickpeas or fried tofu. Those are all great proteins. And then of course we have all of our different vegetables that we can put in. So we'll just talk about a couple here to finish out. So we can start off with some celery, and most importantly is all the vegetables have already been washed. You want to make sure that you wash them all off before we use them. For our celery, easiest one to do, keeping in mind what I said at the beginning about holding our knife, keeping our hand curled on the other hand, we're just going to cut off the ends. We'll put that in our little bowl that I keep there. And best if the celery is upside down. If it's this way, it tends to rock back and forth. When we're chopping, we want to try to keep things as anchored as we can. And just a nice little rocking motion. And we're just going to cut those into little slices like that. Absolutely perfect. All set to go with our salad. Our green onions, the green parts of the green onions are fantastic in there. And a couple different ways to cut them. Again, curled fingers. We can just cut them into small pieces like that. Fairly small, we don't want really strong flavors. Or if you want to do it more Japanese style, as you might see in some ramen soups, if you cut them on an angle so that your knife is like on a 45-degree angle with your onions, you're going to get some beautiful sort of parallelogram pieces with your green onions, which look great in a salad too. We eat with our eyes as much as we eat with our mouths. What we see encourages us to eat more or eat the things that we really should be eating, and lots of different colors and shapes make a salad much more interesting. For our carrot, a couple of different ways to cut our carrots up. We can cut them straight into little circles. We call this in cooking, we call these rondelles. A lot of French words that we use with cooking. Or we can cut a section of our carrot in half first with my hands over top in a bridge form. Now when I put my carrot down, it's nice and flat on my cutting board, and now I'm cutting it into slices. But these are little half circles now, and in cooking we call these demi-lunes, or half moons in English, because they look like half a moon. And finally, just like with our green onions, you could always get rid of this little piece and cut them on an angle as well. You end up with larger pieces, but they've got a nice, interesting shape to them as well. So there's our carrot. For our tomatoes, we've got some large tomatoes like this, or some small grape tomatoes. For the grape tomatoes, you might want to cut them in half. Again, that little bridge hold over top, careful with the knife. And then you've got some halves, or even cut them into quarters. For our regular field type tomatoes, a couple of different options with that. Cut it in half first. Tomatoes also one thing that a serrated knife is good to cut with. A serrated knife cuts them really well, but I'll continue using my chef's knife. First thing I can do is I can cut them into wedges. So I cut them in half first, and then very carefully cutting down on an angle. So you get nice big wedges like that. Or if you just want to cut them into dice, like little squares, well, one easy way to do that, again, flat edge down already. We're going to cut those into slices. And then, again, flat edge down. Cut them into long lengths. And then cut them into dice like that. Cutting a tomato is a little bit harder, they're a little bit slippery, so you might want to maybe just cut one slice at a time as well. So there are tomatoes. And then finally, we've got some peppers. I chose a yellow one today just because I had some different other colors. I already had my oranges and my reds and my greens, so I chose a yellow this time. Lots of different ways I've seen on cooking shows of how people cut peppers. I find one of the easiest ways is one straight down cut to cut sort of the top off. That way we can get rid of the green stuff. We still have some great pepper here that we can use after. But what we want to do is we want to get rid of the seeds and the ribs on the inside. I just use my thumb for that. Again, into a container. Keep everything nice and neat. And taking off as much of the white stuff, those are called the ribs on the inside. They have a slightly bitter flavor, so you really don't want those in your salad. Now I cut them in half, so I have two halves. And now we can cut them just into strips. If you'd like long strips in your salad, that's great. Or you can take those strips, move this stuff out of the way, and turn them sideways. And we end up with nice little dice, just like we diced our tomatoes. We end up with nice little diced peppers as well. So we've got lots of different colors here. We've got lots of different flavors. A really fun idea is to do a lot of this cutting up beforehand. Create a salad bar. That's what we do at our Kingsway kitchen. Do all sorts of different vegetables. We do 4 different dressings, homemade croutons, set up a salad bar on the countertop, and you can enjoy making your own salad exactly the way you want. One other vegetable to add, onions. Some people don't like to add onions because they're a very, very strong taste. So I have an idea that some students have really enjoyed. So we're going to take some red onion over here, and we're going to cut that red onion into strips. I'm picking red onion, it's got a slightly different flavor, and it's also got some cool red color in it as well. So we've got some strips of onion. I've got a container with some water in it already. I'm also going to add some apple cider vinegar. There's our acid in there, about half and half, half water, half vinegar. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, a couple of teaspoons of sugar, and a teaspoon of salt. And we're going to make our own, this makes our own pickling solution. Just going to give that a stir up, just to dissolve the sugar and the salt. And then into that goes my slices of red onion. Stick that in the fridge overnight. You're going to look at it the next day and see that the liquid's turned really red thanks to the onion, and that the flavor of the onion has really mild. That bitter onion flavor is gone now, and now you've got some great taste. They're nice and soft. They're fantastic to have on top of a salad as well. So get creative. I know there's way more vegetables out there that I've mentioned today that many of you probably like. Try the vegetables that you like. Remember to be safe when you're working with the knife. And of course, clean up before you get all that salad stuff out there for your family to enjoy a fantastic salad dinner. So enjoy some salad and happy cooking.